Pre-game, post-game, every game, presented by Bodog, Canada's home for casino games and sports odds, where everybody goes to play. JPat and Wadden here with you in another edition of the pregame as the Canucks get set to face off against the Coyotes. And JPat, more bad news on the injury front this morning. We found out that Tyler Myers out 2 to 4 weeks. That blue line getting beat up a little bit.
Yeah, well, look, didn't we do this on a recent pod where we talked about all the noise around this hockey club for a team that needs a quick start out of the gates, and now you add a more significant, like up that volume level. Tyler Myers, 2 to 4 weeks. We know that he played the other night in Abbotsford, but was nowhere to be found at practice on Thursday at UBC. And then this morning, Bruce tells us after the morning skate that 2 to 4 weeks for Tyler Myers. Man, does this complicate matters? Travis Dermott already is out indefinitely. We don't know his situation. And you just look at the shape of this Vancouver Canucks defense. We talk about all summer. We have spent looking at the defense. And I think the consensus is that this blue line isn't good enough as presented. And now all of a sudden you take Tyler Myers out of the mix for the first couple of weeks. So looks like he's going to miss the 5-game road trip at the very least to start this season. And what does that mean for Quinn Hughes? Because Quinn Hughes has played the left side. They've experimented with him over on the right. Say what you will about Tyler Myers, and I know that he's not everybody's favorite player, but the way this blue line is constructed to start the season at the very least, he is one of their top 3 defensemen, and they were going to lean on him to log significant minutes over on that right side. You take him out of the mix. Now that right side, you've got Luke Schenn, you've got Kyle Burrows. And does that mean that Quinn Hughes has to start on the right side because they feel that they've got some depth on the left? But it's a great opportunity for Jack Rathbone. Certainly looks like he has made this hockey club out of camp now. And maybe even Christian Wolanin, who had the nice preseason. But again, if you're going to start the season with Schenn and Rathbone and Wolanin on your blue line in your lineup, it just begs more questions about the overall depth and health of this Vancouver Canuck blue line.
You mentioned Quinn Hughes. Is he going to play on the left side? Is he going to play on the right side, especially now with the Myers injury? The head coach was asked about that. He also gave an update on Brock Besser and Ilya Mikheyev.
I got to figure this one out yet. We got a lot of lefties, not a lot of righties, but whatever the combinations are that work, we'll probably use. So there's a good possibility that might happen, but because he wasn't playing tonight and the Myers news is fairly recent, that I haven't really delved into it as to who's going to play where come Wednesday night. Yeah, I think if you're here at practice Sunday, he'll be probably in a non-contact jersey for a bit, and we're hoping Besser's ready to practice full by the time we practice again.
Do you expect them both to go on the trip to start the year?
Both of them, I expect them to be on the trip.
All right, so there you have it, JPat. Let's start with Hughes, though, on whether he's going to be on the right side. I mean, even the head coach doesn't know right now. At practice today, or at the morning skate today, paired with Schenn, looks like he's not going to be in the lineup tonight. We're expecting Christian Wolanin to be there, but what do you expect moving forward here? Is that the best play for the Canucks to have Quinn Hughes on the right side while all these injuries are occurring?
Yeah, curious circumstances this morning here at Rogers Arena because Quinn Hughes, as you said, took the morning skate paired with Luke Schenn, and then they got around to power play drills, and Quinn was clearly an observer, and they were running OEL as the point man on the first power play unit. Rathbone was getting an opportunity. Wolanin had a couple of reps in there as well, and that was the first indication that, hang on a sec, maybe Quinn Hughes isn't going to play in this hockey game. Sure enough, I asked the coach after the morning skate, and he confirmed, much like JT Miller the other day, Miller took the morning skate, didn't play in Abbotsford. Quinn Hughes taking the morning skate here, but he will not be in the lineup. Canucks have a pretty good idea of what they've got in Quinn Hughes, but this question does remain about left side versus right side. And so I think that they want to get another look at Christian Wolanin in this game tonight. I think it's another opportunity for a guy like Jack Rathbone to step up and continue to prove his worth and his value. But all of a sudden, if you're going to move Quinn Hughes over to the right side, OEL is your lead dog on the left. And, what's left in his tank at this stage to be a top pair shutdown kind of guy. And from there, where do the dominoes fall in terms of optimal partnerships for the Vancouver Canucks on their defense? So last look, this is the preseason finale, the dress rehearsal, if you will. And I would suggest a fair bit riding on this game now with this Myers injury news, because it certainly complicates matters for Bruce Boudreau and his coaching staff.
Good news for Brock Besser, though, who seems to be progressing pretty quickly after hand surgery. He's going to be a full participant, as the head coach said, in practice on Sunday, and Ilya Mikheyev looking like he's progressing as well. That's great news, though, for Brock Besser. Looks like he'll be in the opening night lineup.
Well, I'm not prepared to go that far. Again, the only time I've seen Brock Besser on skates was out at UBC midweek. Wasn't shooting pucks at all. We knew that his feet are fine. The injury was to his hand, and so it's good to see him back on the ice, but I need to see him with my own two eyes. I need to see him firing the pucks. I mean, the hands are his moneymakers, obviously, and they're not going to put him in harm's way if he's not 100% ready to go. All it would take is, a slash here or a slash there. And look, opponents, they know what's going on around the league. They know the nature of the injury as well. So I do think the Canucks have to be careful when it comes to Brock Besser. So I want to see him at practice, want to see if he's got some zip and some velocity on his shot, because if he doesn't, then he's nowhere close to being the Brock Besser that the Vancouver Canucks are going to need. And we've talked about it's time for a 30-goal season from Brock Besser. Certainly this injury, a little bit of a setback, but yes, the news is encouraging that it looks like he's going to be back around with the group. It looks like he may go out on the road trip with the Vancouver Canucks, but I'm not prepared to suggest that he's ready for the opening night lineup in Edmonton next Wednesday.
And Mikheyev, though, I mean, just gotta feel good for Mikheyev. It looks like he's progressing. Hopefully he'll get in there at some point during the road trip.
Yeah, and again, we saw him for 7 minutes of ice time in that preseason opener against Calgary, went down. There was an initial report that significant damage to his knee. Clearly that's not the case. And so it kind of has been good news for Mikheyev since then, back on skates this week. Again, Bruce suggesting that he would be back at practice, but in a non-contact jersey. Well, if they take Saturday off and their practice is on Sunday, that only leaves them a couple of days before opening night in Edmonton on Wednesday. So I don't think Mikheyev is going to be anywhere close to going on opening night in game number 1, but it just, all of these clues suggest that it shouldn't be too long to get him back in the lineup.
We've seen Elias Paterson wearing an A recently in preseason games, and the head coach was asked about the leadership group today after the morning skate.
I mean, no, we got Bo and, no, I mean, we're going with the same group that we've had. I mean, I think they're great, OEL, Miller, and Horvat, but I wanted to let both Petey and Quinn know that they're right on the cusp of this, and they are part of the leadership group, even though they don't wear an A on a daily basis. If one of those guys, touch wood, isn't playing through injury or whatever, those are guys we're looking at to wear the A that will someday take the mantle, and be those guys.
Now, this is something that I think was expected at some point from Elias Paterson. If you're going to be a star player on most teams, you have a part of the leadership group. And I think it's really a growth that we would like to see in Paterson's game. The fact that he wants to be that leader. We've seen it on the ice, the way he's been playing in this preseason, but now they're showing it to him in the form of a letter as well.
Yeah, and it's not just Paterson. It was Quinn Hughes the other night in Abbotsford, and that was the question that I put to the coach was, nothing is done by chance at this level. I mean, the fact that Hughes and Paterson were singled out, look, they didn't need to have A's in the preseason. The team could have gone without those alternate captains, but there's a method to the madness here, and I think it's great. Again, I think it is time. Elias Paterson entering his 5th season in the NHL, Quinn Hughes into his 4th now. These aren't first-year guys anymore. They've been around the block. They've shown what they're capable of. The players in that room recognize their importance to the hockey club. And so, I thought a really interesting answer from Bruce Boudreau was willing to sort of open it up that, they're not going to be brought into the leadership group in terms of a full-time role with a letter stitched to their jersey this season. But hey, if there's an injury to Horvat or Miller or to OEL, then yes, It opens the door right then and there, and there's sort of that next man up. But just the nod here in the preseason, I think, has to tell those guys that even though they won't have a letter on their jersey most nights, they are seen by the organization as part of the leadership group now, but also as heir apparents when there is a vacancy for those guys to have the additional duties. And I don't think it's a distraction. I don't think it's added pressure. They know what they mean to the hockey club. They have shown their value out on the ice over a handful of seasons now. So, I think it was the right move in the preseason, and I'm glad to hear that, as time marches on here, yes, they'll get their opportunity to be welcomed into the Canucks leadership group.
All right, let's dive into the projected lineup here for the Canucks for this evening. And a couple of things are standing out for me. Nils Aman is going to center the 4th line. Looks like he'll center the 4th line. Linus Karlsson going to get another opportunity to play in a top 6 role. Is Nils Aman the front runner to be the 4th line center right now?
It's certainly looking like this hockey club is taking a long, hard look at that. Interesting that Jason Dickinson among the guys that isn't expected to skate in this game. Now, it is the final dress rehearsal. You can look at it a couple of ways. One is, a last look before decisions have to be made on these guys. Say what you will about Jason Dickinson. The team, I think, has a pretty decent sense of what he is, where his limitations are. I think they're still trying to gather information on guys like Nils Aman and Linus Karlsson at this level, but I know that Bruce Boudreau has been really impressed with both of them, but particularly Aman, big size, long reach. They've put him in a penalty-killing role. They're putting him at center ice there. Tonight, it looks like he's going to skate on the line between Dakota Joshua and Curtis Lazar. Lazar brought in as a center, but he has shuttled to the wing as well. And I think this is an opportunity for Nils Aman, for the management group and the coaching staff to take one last look at him against NHL competition in the Arizona Coyotes. But yeah, I mean, this guy's been one of the real stories of camp. And so good on him to make it this far. But just because he's playing tonight doesn't mean that he has made this hockey club. Those decisions are going to have to come here over the next 72 hours when the Canucks get through the Thanksgiving weekend and have to set their roster on Tuesday. But another solid performance by Nils Aman. And yeah, I think he might be part of the traveling group that heads to Edmonton for Wednesday night.
Nils Höglander looking like he's going to get an opportunity tonight to play with JT Miller and Tanner Pearson as well. Does it surprise you that Höglander's getting that chance once again to play an offensive role?
Not really. I think it's sort of a reward for the kind of preseason that he's had and the fact that he scored in the last couple of games that he has played. And so if you're playing with JT Miller, you're in a top 6 scoring role. There's no question about that. Tanner Pearson on the other side. And so good for Nils Höglander. He came to camp, and we did kind of wonder, where does he slot in? Again, important to note that Besser and Mikheyev aren't part of this conversation right here, right now. But look, they're absent. Somebody's got to step up into those roles. We've seen Connor Garland get an opportunity. He's responded there. And so tonight it looks like a grade A chance for Nils Höglander to continue to prove to Bruce Boudreau that he belongs here, that he deserves to be a part of the Vancouver Canucks opening night lineup.
Tucker Pullman's had an up and down preseason. Looks like he's going to be paired with OEL. This is a big night for Tucker Pullman. He also really has to take advantage of the opportunity that is ahead of him here with Myers' injury.
Yeah, well, we talk about take Tyler Myers out of the equation. 20 minutes a night on the right side. And yeah, maybe you do slide Quinn Hughes over. If they elect to keep Hughes on the left side, then you wonder, is Luke Schenn their top side right guy all of a sudden? Is Tucker Pullman? What an opportunity for a guy like Kyle Burroughs. But yeah, I think Tucker Pullman's gotten stronger here as the camp has worn on. I thought the other night in Abbotsford actually played pretty solidly, and that was a good sign for him. He's going to have to continue to progress. But let's be honest, there are limitations to his game. I'm not sure how much more room there is for Tucker Pullman to grow. That said, a lot of rust built up over the last half of last season when he didn't play. And so for him to get through training camp healthy and through these preseason games, and again, I think they're ramping up his workload and his usage, but there's nowhere to hide. If Myers is gone 2 to 4 weeks, there are others that are going to have to step in and play significant minutes on the right side. And for me, that list starts with Tucker Pullman. So I'm with you. Whether it's preseason, whether it's regular season, it's time to show that this guy can hold his own at the National Hockey League level.
It's time for JT Miller to show up in this preseason as well. I'd like to see a better effort from JT Miller tonight against the Coyotes. Kind of expect that we'll see that tonight, or is he still, sort of going through the motions of preseason?
No, I asked him this morning, and I said, let's be honest, JT, the last time you appeared in a game was in Seattle. You and the hockey club just didn't have a whole lot of juice, so I would expect that you want to ramp it up here tonight. He kind of laughed, and he said, we're not going to revisit the Seattle game. That was last Saturday. That was the middle of the preseason. Canucks are icing pretty close to their opening night lineup. And yes, JT Miller will play in this one. So I would expect that you'll see a better effort from him individually, again, on that line with Pearson and with Nils Höglander on the other side. A bit of a laugh when somebody asked JT what he thought when the power play scored 3 without him the other night. And he said, yeah, I was a little worried about losing my spot there. He thought Bo looked pretty good on the left flank. Of course, Bo will move back to the middle in the bumper spot, and JT will resume his spot over on the left side. But with no Quinn Hughes, certainly something to watch in the power play, whether it's OEL, whether Jack Rathbone gets an opportunity to run with power play 1. But yeah, I think a veteran guy, this will be his 3rd game of the preseason, and he knows that this is it for him in terms of game and season readiness. So yeah. I think you'll see a much better effort from JT Miller than we saw at Climate Pledge last Saturday night.
All right, the preseason's going to wrap up here over the Thanksgiving long weekend, and the waiver wire is something we're going to be keeping our eye on. Justin Dowling put on waivers by the Canucks today. Some interesting names already being put on that wire. Jordan Martinook put on by the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, a former Vancouver Giant there, Andreas Johnsson from the New Jersey Devils, although I think with that contract he'll get through, but it'd be kind of interesting to see if the Canucks are sniffing around on the waiver wire this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think all 32 teams will have their lines in the water, and we'll see. And you're right, cap implications play such a role. You might like a player, but he's got to be able to fit, and there has to be a spot for. And if you're claiming a player, that's a roster spot, and so that means somebody else has to go. But if the Canucks, the guys that you mentioned were forwards there, I think they would be looking for defensive help even before this news of Tyler Myers. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if there's somebody out there that intrigues the Vancouver Canucks. We know that Jim Rutherford on the record saying that, they're looking for defensemen in that sort of 25, 26-year-old range that can grow with this group. So absolutely, like all teams, they'll be scouring the waiver wire. There's just too much intel in today's NHL. Like, you can't slip guys through the waivers anymore. Even on a long weekend, it's not like everybody's cooking a turkey and working in the kitchen. All of these front offices will be mining the waiver wire, and we'll see what happens. And of course, the Canucks themselves are going to have some difficult decisions to make here over the next 48 to 72 hours as well.
Now, it is the Friday of a long weekend. Should we expect something major from Patrick Alvin tonight, perhaps?
Stay tuned. Certainly, there's a track record there with Canada Day and the Labor Day long weekend and the JT Miller signing. So, yeah, Bo Horvat maybe going to the GM's office and saying, hey, how about we continue this trend here and put my name on the dotted line? But not expecting it, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting the Besser news on Canada Day, and the JT Miller news could have came out of the blue. So let's see how this day unfolds.
All right, well, whose name are you putting on the dotted line tonight? Who needs to do something from JPat?
Well, I tried to use JT Miller the other night, and then he didn't play, so that one kind of fizzled a little bit. We talked about JT Miller. I'm not going to go there. I'll tell you where I'm going here.
Ooh,
and I like this player an awful lot. I know you do, and the fan base does too, but there's got to be a bottom line for Vasily Podkolzin this season. And through preseason, and he has been put in some great spots, played on the wing with Paterson and Kuzmenko the one game, played with Connor Garland the other night. He's got 1 point, 1 goal, and it was a beautiful goal against the Calgary Flames in his preseason opener. But since then, when you look at the role that he has played, and he's played up over 20 minutes in some of these games, there hasn't been a bottom line. And I know it's just his second year, but he finished so strong last season. And there's a lot to like in this player, but they need production, especially with Besser and Mikheyev out of the lineup to start the season. So we'll see. It looks like Podkolzin's going to play with Horvat and Garland. Like, that's a great opportunity.
Sure.
That line has shown some flashes here in the preseason, but you have to remember, Vasily Podkolzin was a top 10 pick. Like, I don't want the bar in this market to be low with this player, that there has to be a bottom line. And we know how well he shoots the puck, go hard to the net, be physical and grind down opponents. But, I'd like to see 20 goals from Vasily Podkolzin here in his second season. Maybe that's asking too much, but the way that he finished, the shot that he has, the role that he's going to get, so here tonight, but also in the season, I want to see Vasily Podkolzin take a step forward. So he's my do-something guy tonight.
22 goals. That's what I'm predicting for Vasily Podkolzin.
I'd love to see it. The team would love to see it, but he's got 1 in the preseason.
Sure.
From 1 to 22, like, there's a lot of ground to make up there. So I know he wasn't going to get 22 in the preseason. It's just there have been moments for him. Don't get me wrong here, but there has to be that tangible takeaway at the end of the night, and he can't go long stretches without being an offensive contributor if he and the hockey club are both going to take a step forward this season.
Yeah, you have to have the offensive side of the game if you're Vasily Podkolzin. We know he brings it on the other side of the game, but you expect it from Podkolzin. The Canucks are going to need it. All right, let's look at the Bodog line for tonight. It's not a pretty line either. I don't know if I would touch either of these. Canucks are the favorite at minus 350. Coyotes at plus 250. Say, listen, if you think Arizona State can come in here and steal a victory, might be worth putting a couple of shekels down on that. But that is your Bodog line for tonight. All right, JPat, they got a win. They got one. Let's see if they can get their second one and close off this preseason here tonight. And then as we head into this long weekend and get set for the regular season, it's a big game, not only for the Canucks, but for us as well, because the regular season is right around the corner, and then it's go time, baby.
Well, hey, look, the regular season is underway over in Prague with the Predators and the San Jose Sharks. So hockey season is officially underway for the other 30 teams on this side of the Atlantic, though. The preseason wraps up here this weekend for the Vancouver Canucks. It's tonight, and after this one, then those decisions have to be made. So, yeah, a fair bit on the line. I think we talked about Nils Zaman, Linus Karlsson getting the chance to play with Elias Pettersson and Andrei Kuzmenko, so a great chance for him to take another step forward. He didn't play the other night in Abbotsford. Dakota Joshua, would like to see him be a little bit more involved, rugged and physical than he was in the game against the Oilers on Thursday night. So, and then all those defensemen, again, with the news of the day that Tyler Myers out 2 to 4 weeks, all of those depth defensemen, they all get bumped up sort of a spot in the pecking order. And I really do think that tonight is an opportunity for some of those guys to make a statement that they should be one of the 6 defensemen that dresses when the curtain goes up Wednesday night in Edmonton, the first of 82 games for keeps this season for the Vancouver Canucks.
Can't wait for that, and maybe you can't wait for the post-game podcast. We'll have that for you as available as quick as we can after the final horn tonight between the Canucks and the Coyotes. And of course, you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms. This has been another edition of the Rink-Wide Vancouver podcast. For Jeff Paterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. We, of course, are presented by Bodog. And remember, Rink-Wide is the show that always scores.